Welcome to episode 6. Creating video is great, but what's the point?
Welcome to the PR Playbook podcast with Ranjini Joshua, the only podcast that teaches you how to strategically navigate the world of public relations and social media and grow a powerful brand.
Hello and welcome to episode 6. I wrote a blog last week about how digital media was going to be a huge focus as brands get acclimated to a new way of life online and at home. Due to the challenging current climate, brands are looking to find new ways to network, engage, and interact, revisioning their digital presence. Something that I personally think is a great move and definitely something that's going to be more prominent in the future. So today, I'm excited to kick off my interview series with Dan Garraway, co-founder of WIREWAX, a leading interactive video platform. Hi, Dan. Thank you for joining me today on the PR Playbook podcast.
Hey, good to meet you.
Great. I'm excited to have you on as a guest because really you are on the cusp of video and interactive video and a new way of how people are going to be looking at digital content, which I really love. And we'll talk a little bit more about your background in a minute. So I like to keep things pretty short and sweet here on the PR Playbook podcast. So let's dive right in. First, can you give us a quick introduction of your company and you and what you do, and maybe some name dropping of the brands that you've worked with?
Yeah, sure. So Dan here, obviously co-founder of WIREWAX. We are an interactive video technology. And to ground that, we actually have a whole range of technologies, computer vision-based and machine learning technologies that understand video, first and foremost, and then through a suite of creative tools allow people to make it interactive. Just to summarize quickly what that might look like, if you're in a video and watching a video as you would normally, this time you'd be able to perhaps touch a person or object. Even if they're moving, you'd actually be able to touch them and explore what they're wearing, for example, if it's shoppable, or if you'd like to know more about a character, or just have more context around the messaging. Increasingly, it's really used by brands themselves, and we'll talk a bit more about this, I know, but like branded content studios are an increasingly prominent area where people are taking control of their own content, right through to media studios from Disney, who've won a Webby Award using the technology, through to the BBC in the UK, who have been making kids TV interactive, right through to the top tier brands you'd expect, Nike, Walmart and others are using the technology to draw people closer to the outcomes and the actions inside video. We're a technology company, but it's worth saying that we do come from a video production background. We have approached this technology from a creative standpoint. That's really what we're all about, is trying to make a more creative use of technology in video, really.
Thanks for that overview. And yeah, if you take a look at their website, wirewax.com, I think it's wirewax.com, right? Is that right?
Yes, it is.
You could see, I mean, it very in the very front of the website, you could see how cool some of the interactive video stuff is. And when I saw their website, I was immediately drawn to how we can leverage this for public relations purposes. And I think that's one thing that we've been driving people towards is diversifying their content. Can you tell us, if brands haven't used video before, a few steps that really can get them started successfully?
Yeah, and we alluded to this probably in our sort of title of this discussion, because one of the things which we are always talking to brands and publishers about, and this is a question that often gets asked too late in the process, is why bother? Why are you doing this in the first place? Why are you actually making a video? It's surprisingly, a question that gets little attention. I think that there's lots of reasons for that. I mean, lots of, obviously, the video production, the TV world is exciting and interesting, and entertainment is an interesting concept in itself for people. So when it comes to making content, it's like, how can we make something that's cool, that people often say.
Right.
What does cool mean to you is obviously a big subjective question, but even if you get past that question, what the hell is it going to do for your business? I mean, it's an expensive thing to start producing, and it requires a lot of time and energy. especially from a small, marketing team or a content team in a business.
Right,
So,
and a level of consistency, right?
yeah, absolutely. And you can't go at this without having that consistent sort of strategy that you're implementing over content over a period of time. Increasingly, of course, we all understand that content's getting a little bit shorter. So, this is why we have interactivity in the first place. Is if you're really trying to engage someone in a shorter period of time, allowing them to lean forward and on their motivation, importantly, it's their motivation. They lean forward and touch or click or interact. You're getting them to decide what's interesting to them, and then you're drawing closer an outcome. If you A/B test, obviously, interactive video against a non-interactive video, when you're watching a non-interactive video, you're passively watching. I mean, that very word passive means that you're not doing anything. You might well be consuming the information, right? But on average, consumers are seeing 5 to 10,000 messages a day. In times like these, of course, we're all indoors at the moment. Mm-hmm. This is going to get even more pronounced because people are watching content all day long, which is obviously a whole different opportunity in itself. But that, if people are literally in front of their screens, you're going to see more messages. You're going to see more, pieces of content. And that makes it all the more difficult to get to an outcome. So, what we're trying to do is advise all our users, and there's tens of thousands of users on the platform now. They all come at it with this generally speaking, with the mindset of how do you make something exciting and interesting and cool. But we very quickly want them to understand that if they're going to do anything with video, they have to understand the motivation. Are they looking to drive sales? Are they looking to drive awareness? What does that awareness do? It has to be, if you ask the question why 5 times generally with anything, you get to the right answer, of course. The same should apply to any video strategy.
Yeah, I like that. And so it sounds like you, one, really have to have like a deep commitment to, producing consistent content, but also you have to have some goals. You can't just put things out with no purpose.
Yes, absolutely. And to be honest with you, there are areas of the industry where this often comes up, and there is areas of the industry where it doesn't. I mean, when we have a lot of publishers who use WIREWAX to engage with viewers and tell them more about the story without them having to watch a longer video, for example. Mm-hmm. So watch a 2-minute news report or a 2-minute breakdown, and you can still watch an additional few minutes of content at various points that tells you more depth or goes longer on an interview, for example, because
cool.
That's allowing the viewer to understand more of the context, but you don't necessarily want everyone to do that. Whereas you've got, some of, I'd say, leaning higher end fashion companies who are at the business level, even at C level in these businesses, saying we need to use interactivity. It needs to be a fundamental part of what we offer. One of those brands we have is Matches Fashion, for example, a strong e-commerce retailer who's doing great work, and they're using interactive across all of their video content. It's that business level decision. Unfortunately, it doesn't always translate to the creative community. Creative community, and I speak as one of the creative community from my past. I was a camera person. They come at it from making beautiful content. They want to make something that's creative and exciting. But unless you're joining that creative to the business outcomes, it's a lost cause. So you really need to make sure that not just you as a business are understanding what you're trying to achieve, but each stakeholder in the process of making video content understands what you're trying to achieve. And that's a bit of a unique challenge, but it can be undertaken with just really clear steps in the top. So you're not making video content that just makes people go, "Oh, that's nice," or "That's wonderful," "That's beautiful," and unfortunately, it comes up more often than you may realize. I mean, a production company may have a director on the shoot, for example, who doesn't even know it's going to be made interactive. And if they don't know it's going to be made interactive, then they're just thinking about how do I make a beautiful video rather than thinking about how's the audience going to interact with this?
Right. So it's not typical video production. And this kind of actually goes into my next question of what are common mistakes brands make. It's not just about the production value. It's not just entertainment, but this is really like a convergence of those two different areas, entertainment plus action-oriented content.
Yeah. And that goes through to data as well, understanding, what your viewers are doing. We obviously in interactivity record a huge amount more information, touches, clicks, what people are looking at for how long. If you have overlays in a lot of interactivity, you have a call to action, a hotspot, and then once the viewer's touched or clicked, it will display an overlay of content, perhaps product information or more context to the story. You can actually understand where people are interested. What are they spending more time on? Are they spending more time on watching or looking at the overlay content to do with a certain category of product than another category of product? Those things are actually being used to understand and make better content as well. So we are seeing, that there's a sort of rather virtuous circle that is created once you take an interactive and dynamic approach to making video content. The learnings you take from making it interactive make you able to make better content next time. So it's a very consistently new and exciting proposition when it comes to making strategy in video, I think.
Yeah. And, this is just kind of like a side question, but, do you guys as an agency or a platform, let's say I'm making video for the first time, obviously this interactive video is a fairly new concept. So do you help through making sure that those different engagement points, do you kind of advise on those things and how to make it more actionable, or is it really more of a tool?
Yeah. And, one of the questions that comes up in these sort of things is are people making it, brand new? Are they coming at this to make interactive video from the start? And the answer to that is always pretty much roughly half and half. People make video that they know is going to be interactive, and they build out ideas around that. And we often help with that because we have a lot of expertise. We have a lot of our team are experts in this field, some of which have been inside media and entertainment companies themselves and have come to us because of the storytelling possibilities with interactivity. So there's lots of expertise that we help people with, but there's also a large proportion of users, as I say, probably at least half, who are using the platform to make more value from what content they already have. And I do think, in a time of course, as we are likely to see more people making use of interactivity to get more value out of the content that you already own, because in a pandemic, it's very difficult to be making content out in the world. I mean, there are challenges to doing that from a purely physical and sort of organizational logistic point of view.
Absolutely.
And I do think that's where you can make more from less. And to be honest with you, I would think that's a good move for everyone. I'm not a big believer in the idea that more content is better content.
Right.
Because we know how powerful video content is, and we also know those constant statistics that come in front of us about how many billions of hours is uploaded every day and every hour and all that sort of stuff. I think there's been a general assessment from the content and creative industries for the last few years that we just need to make more content. But actually, content's really, really hard to make. It's creative ideas don't scale, and and so you can find that you get very formulaic content, you get very incidental, not very interesting content a lot of the time. I think, if anything, we should be trying to move towards making perhaps more content with the why question answered. What are you actually trying to do with this piece of video content? And then using interactivity to connect it through to the outcomes and actions that you want as a result.
And we're actually seeing that. I mean, you're talking about video content, but I'm seeing that in our written content. We have clients that often want to produce content, but there's no why to it. It's just, I'm supposed to be doing something every week, or I'm supposed to be posting something. But I think, social media has proven if you start posting content that doesn't mean anything or really doesn't connect to the audience, then no one's really going to look at it. And actually, same with some traditional PR and press releases. We used to have clients that said, I'm supposed to put out a press release every month. It doesn't matter if it doesn't matter. So I think Yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic. Maybe less is more in this case.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about as in our discussions of the idea of like press releases being interactive as well. I mean, we have clients like Business Wire who are using our product in interactive media. There's lots of progression of using video to tell messages in a short space of time, and there is with interactivity as part of a broad tool set, there is many ways to tell effective stories that don't require you just to do repetition. You don't, in that world of 5 to 10,000 messages a day that we're all consuming, there's very little time. It's so self-indulgent to think somebody cares. Like,
right.
You've got to be realistic about where you feature in people's lives. And I know there's a big criticism generally of the creative industries that they often make things just for awards and just for themselves.
Right.
And I don't know how much I believe that, but I certainly, entertain the idea that the world is getting on with things, and more in this scenario as we are today than ever. So, pay some attention to what's going on around people, and be realistic about where you feature in their lives. Make content that fits to that.
That's good advice.
If you're a government, and you're making content that's helping people right now, obviously people are going to be listening at this particular moment. If you're a brand selling socks, I'm questioning where you feature in people's lives in general forms. So make that consideration and adjust your priorities of your content as to suit that.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Actually, speaking of awards, going back, I noticed that WIREWAX just won an award for the most innovative interactive video platform of 2020 from CV Magazine. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Also the most interactive, so that's good for you to pick up on. Yes.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yes, I think that's amazing, and I mean, I'm so intrigued by what you guys do. I really would love to. I mean, kind of as we're talking in this podcast, I'm thinking, how am I going to make this an interactive video? Maybe next time we'll do a live video or something, and have some ways to click and make it content actionable. But it's a very interesting topic, and I do think it requires people to really think about how they're going to use it rather than just to do it for the novelty of it. Mm-hmm. I think what would be really cool, I mean, I know you've done a lot of really creative campaigns. Can you talk about a campaign specifically that you've done that your team is maybe particularly proud of, or had this like really intentional content that delivered, based on your experience?
Yeah, that's a good question. One that always is coming to my mind at the moment is Home Depot. Actually, obviously the do-it-yourself retailer, and increasingly, of course, everyone is trying to make more out of their e-commerce channels and their .com environment. Home Depot have approached us and have been using the technology to first and foremost make video a connected part to their web experience. I think there's coming from obviously making video that used to go out on a TV set in the corner of the room and put it into a digital environment. Not a lot has changed, actually. And when you think about a brand and their video content, you often think about a brand's website and then a brand's YouTube. Well, again, you've got to have a concert approach to how you make content and an experience that delights your customer. Home Depot really took that to heart, and they've been using WIREWAX to a creative and a delightful experience inside video that connects into the e-commerce experience. So for their first use of the technology, they're actually using WIREWAX in their paint video content. And so if you imagine a video where you have a beautiful new house, which is kind of a sort of dream house to explore, they have a camera shot that's very simple, steady cam that walks through the house. And as the walk through the house of the video continues, your mouse cursor, or if you're on a touch interface, your finger, as you're going over the video itself and you're hovering over the surfaces of the house, you can actually see the colors that are being used on the walls, and you can hover and touch those colors in the actual video, and it will then display what color that is from the color range. It will offer you the opportunity to switch and match colors that complement it. And as a delightful experience goes, that's great. But one of the pieces that extends the experience is that within the video itself, you can actually heart that color. You can say, I love this color inside this video. This is great. And what it does is not just make a nice little animation happen. It actually tells the website that you were interested in this color. So what you've done there is you've taken a very simple video asset that displayed lots of products, in this case, paint colors, and you've turned it into something which makes the e-commerce experience better, because every time you now go to another page on the Home Depot website, if you're logged in, it's going to say, you love this color, you like this in this video that you saw. What about this? And that, of course, makes a better outcome for the retailer, in this case, Home Depot. They have favorites that are appearing inside video content as well as inside the website.
Absolutely.
But, that's a delightful experience for the customer. You can actually just start compiling interests that you have that you were going to spend more time on. You don't need to spend the time now Googling what that color was. You don't need to spend time looking on the website to find out what it was. It's just connected into your experience.
Yeah, I think the interactive shopping over the last few years has become really dynamic. And this example is great because, for me, I know I've used Houzz and things like that before. And you're always trying to see how everything fits into your home life and how everything fits into decorating. And I think that's a really good example because it's one that I think most of us can identify with, of just trying to match things up, especially with paint,
Exactly. Yeah, it's a very personal thing, and having ways to do that in a way which is creative and experiential makes use of the fact that you're in a digital environment, and it gives you an experience that's equivalent to walking into a store. And Home Depot is one of those stores where you walk in and there's tens, if not hundreds, of people in the store environment, assistants helping. And so, if you're on the online experience, why should that be any different? Why should you just be left to your own devices to just constantly work through product display pages to find what you're looking for? The video is the way to curate the e-commerce experience, and this is a fine example of it, I think.
Yeah, I think it really helps maximize our time when we're spending on these things, and I think that's what most people get frustrated with, is the amount of time that's being spent. But this is awesome. It's a great example. I think we're running out of time here, so I just want to make sure, that our listeners have a really good understanding of what it kind of takes to get things going on video, or even being interactive, or even any kind of really digital content. Would you be able to just kind of summarize 3 quick things that brands should consider or know when getting into producing videos? Since I know that actually involves quite a bit.
Yeah, I think I always start with the why. It's actually one of our company values, and we mentioned it earlier. Why you're going to make this video is got to be the overarching strategy implementation. You've got to have that tied up, and I think that results in outcomes that you're looking to achieve as well. There is, when it comes to outcomes in video, people often say, well, how many eyeballs are you going to get? How many watches? How many views? Well, all of that is completely pointless. You cannot build a business off of views. It's been very clear throughout the last 10 years of any video platform. That views do not equal any business outcomes. You have to you figure out what is exactly you're trying to achieve. So get that right. And then I'd say as a second, it would always be the creative concept that works to that outcome you're trying to achieve. That has to follow second. And unfortunately, as I've mentioned before, that often comes first for a lot of people.
Right.
What's the exciting and creative approach to this is got to be connected to that business outcome. So, that might be selecting the amount of duration you're going to start making content. What was that, 3-5 minutes long? Is that something that's longer? Is it shorter? And this then comes down to the third thing, which is, where are you going to put it? We've again been in a legacy orientated world when it comes to video strategy. People used to, make videos, and there used to be TV ads, and they'd transfer them over to the broadcast television station, and then they'd go out for 30-second spots. That's how it used to work. People replaced it with YouTube. They transferred it over to the TV stations, and then they uploaded it to YouTube. That's not a strategy. That's a process. And how are you going to get this to your viewers? Is it using social networks? If so, what social networks? The content that we make for LinkedIn is different to the content we make for Twitter. It's different to the content that we're seeing clients make for owned and operated environments. You have to be selective about each of those audiences that you're trying to get to. So where does it go? And I think where does it go should increasingly be in every brand's mind to build up their owned and operated environment. We've seen a big trend over the last year towards this anyway. Mm-hmm. But I do think it's for everyone's benefit. Obviously, social networks serve a huge purpose to get into people's everyday lives, but they are also very busy environments, and they are also owned environments, not your owned environments. They are owned by others, and as such, you are under their controls as to what you can and can't do and what money you can and cannot make. So if you're not investing in your owned and operated, if you're not taking a seriously strategic approach to how you're using video to build up your owned and operated environment, then I think you're going to struggle in an era where, especially in a situation like we are increasingly in today, you're going to struggle to have a connection with your consumers. I've been really excited by, Home Depot, for example, as I mentioned, and others who have been building up their experiences online to be as exciting, as engaging, as interactive as their store environments, as the rest of their brand is, because that's when you start to get good outcomes from everyone's point of view. So I guess those three are my top thinkings for taking this on. But we are very, open to working with users. We do provide a lot of advice and expertise on this. So please do feel free to get in touch, and particularly in this situation we're in right now, we've just launched 2 packages actually that are specifically orientated at people looking to use impact technologies like WIREWAX in this time. And that includes actually a new tier that we're offering, which is at no cost to freelancers who are mostly struggling to find work at the moment. People who are not actually in work and looking to tool up are welcome to use the technology to find out how they can create new opportunities for themselves. So, we're cognizant of the impact this sort of technology can make in this time.
That's awesome. I think, I could probably ask you quite a few more questions, but I think last but not least, I'd love for you to do a quick WIREWAX plug, just where people can get in touch with you, if it's via email or through your website, and any other plugs that you might have. Obviously, you just told us about some of the new packages that you have that I think people can probably find on your website. But if you don't mind telling us explicitly where they can reach you, that would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So WIREWAX is not to be confused with lots of other interpretations of the name. It's not a very common name. So WIREWAX.com. There is a very similar name for a steel company. I assure you we're not a steel company. So that's where you'll find, obviously, the connections through to everything that you would need to find out about us, including our social presences. My name is Dan Garraway, Garraway. You can find me on LinkedIn. I have a very open approach to collaborating and working with our partners in the industry. So very open to questions as and when they come up in your own mind, and speak directly. We also do have a great team around us who can give demos of the technology at no cost to you, so you can get a bit of an understanding as to what it looks like. Interactivity as a concept has changed a lot through the years. What does interactivity mean and what does it look like is a question some of you may have, especially if you're just listening on the audio. It's difficult to understand what it might look like. And the website does have a lot of examples, but we have a team ready to talk through any of those examples. So you can also ask for specific verticals and different use cases that may be more relevant to you. So feel free to do so.
Perfect. As usual, if you have any questions, Please send us comments, questions, or suggestions to the podcast at silvertelegram.com. Thank you so much, Dan, for your time today and your expertise on interactive video. You'll find additional information on Dan and WIREWAX on the show website with the show notes. And that's all for now. Stay safe, stay healthy, creative, and we'll see you next week.